Hey, what's up everyone? Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids. Today we're looking at 4 chopping tools, 2 that I like a lot and I'm very familiar with, and 2 that are brand new. When it comes to the familiar ones, we're going to look at the ESEE Junglas, the TOPS El Chete. For the 2 new ones, we're looking at the Work Tough Gear Nomad Field Knife and the Work Tough Gear C.U.M.A King Destructo. So during this video, I'm going to give you all the specifications on these 4 tools, and then we're going to put them through the paces and see what we think about them. All right, here are your details on the ESEE Junglas. Your overall length, 16.5 inches. Your cutting edge length is 9.75 inches. Your overall blade length is 10.38 inches. Your blade width is 2 inches. The weight for the knife only, without a sheath, is 23 ounces. Your maximum thickness for the knife is 0.188 inches. 1095 high carbon steel with a Rockwell hardness of 55 to 57. It does have a textured powder coat finish. It also has removable micarta handles with a hammer pommel with a lanyard hole. Let me give you the details on the El Chete now. Your overall length is 17.5 inches. Your blade length is 12 inches. Your cutting edge is 11.38 inches. Blade thickness, 0.25 inches. Your blade steel is 1095 with a Rockwell hardness of 56 to 58. It does have an acid rain finish. The handle material is green canvas and black canvas micarta. The weight of the El Chete by itself is 29.5 ounces, and with the sheath is 37.5 ounces. All right, details on the Nomad field knife. Overall length, 12.9 inches. Your blade length, 7.6 inches. Your cutting edge is 6.5 inches, and your blade thickness, 0.21 inches. Your type of grind is a saber grind with a convex cutting edge. The blade steel is Bowler K340 with a Rockwell hardness of 59 to 61. The finish is a blast stonewash. Your handle material is G10. It's a 3D machined waffle pattern black with blue liner. Your knife weight is 19.5 ounces. Your knife weight with the sheath is 23.5 ounces. All right, let's talk about the Destructo. 15.3 inches from end to end. Your blade length is 9 inches. Your cutting edge is 9 inches. Your blade thickness is 0.23 inches. It is a saber grind with a convex edge. They're calling their blade shape a cleaver style. Your blade steel is SK85 with a 56 to 58 Rockwell hardness. Your blade finish is dark sky finish. It is G10. It's 3D machined. Your knife weight is 27 ounces, and with the sheath, it's 32 ounces. All right, let's do some batoning for our first test. As suspected, none of these tools had any issue with batoning. So as you probably suspected, no issues whatsoever for any of these tools. I will say for the Work Tough Gear tools, I was using a lighter baton, and actually that baton broke on me. It's been out here in the woods at my bushcraft base camp for a while. So once I got a heavier baton, everything just punched through really quick. As far as the angles of the blades, the width, things like that, the only real advantage I would say in this one went to the El Chete, just because it's the biggest and the heaviest, and with a large baton and the weight of that thing, it just punches through through wood. So I guess the El Chete wins batoning, but everybody else performed really well. Let's test out the spines now, see if we can get a spark off of Firesteel, and also see how we do getting some shavings off some dry wood. All right, Firesteel test with each of the choppers. We're gonna look at the C.U.M.A King Destructo from Work Tough Gear first. Definitely works. Now the Nomad field knife. Definitely works as well. Now the El Chete. So obviously you can see if I put a lot of force into it, I can get a tiny spark, but not like the Work Tuff gear ones at all. All right, now the ESEE Junglas. I don't think we're gonna get any sparks off of the spine here. Maybe way up at the tip. Not gonna be working too well. As you can see, I got some nice shavings. A lot of it just kind of sprayed all over the place, and that log is a little bit damp, so I can't take them all, but got some knife shavings with the Nomad field knife. Nice sharp spine on that one. I was able to get a tiny bit with the TOPS El Chete. The issue is that the spine is not 90 degrees. It's it's not great for, you know, throwing a spark of a Firesteel or this type of work. And then also where that finger guard is really digs into your hand if you're trying to hold it with this type of grip. Your ESEE Junglas does okay. Definitely the handle being so neutral is really comfortable to hold on whatever grip you use for it. But the spine is still not 90 degrees, so a little bit of work. I actually found pulling was more effective than pushing to get these shavings. So the C.U.M.A King Destructo definitely has a spine that can throw sparks off a Firesteel and also get some shavings. The handle's not super comfortable. I would say the Junglas is the most comfortable. Field knife second, Destructo third, and then the El Chete fourth. Let's do some demo chopping, starting with the Junglas here. Effective chopping there and no issues with the blade. Next up, the C.U.M.A King Destructo by Work Tuff Gear. Nice job for the Work Tuff Gear, C.U.M.A King Destructo, no blade issues either. Now we've got the Nomad field knife from Work Tuff Gear. Looking good. Last but not least, the El Chete. This thing just has so much weight. It's interesting to go from the Nomad field knife to this guy, because the Nomad field knife definitely feels notably lighter than this. And this thing, with the force, the weight, and the blade, just destroys things. All right, our next test is going to be some chopping. First up, the ESEE Junglas. Next up, the TOPS El Chete. Next up for chopping, the C.U.M.A King Destructo. Last up, the Work Tough Gear Nomad Field Knife. Let's talk sheaths here. This is what the ESEE Junglas standard sheath looks like. So that is Kydex and it does have ballistic nylon up top. You can see that we have an attachment system so you can attach it to a pack. Obviously you can run this on your belt as well. It is going to lock in nicely into the Kydex, and then you have the snap there on the handle, and then you have this little slider here. So when you slide this down, you're able to take the Junglas out. When you have this slidden in, and this is, let me show you here, slid up like so, it locks the Junglas in. So even without the clip here or the snap on the handle, it's still going to stay locked in. The snap on the handle is an extra level of protection. The fact that this is Kydex and not plastic is really nice. This is a very nice sheath to get with an ESEE Junglas. However, I did upgrade my sheath with help from Black Bear Custom Kydex. Let me show you what my system looks like now for my ESEE Junglas. All right, so this is my current sheath system for my ESEE Junglas, made by Black Bear Custom Kydex. You can see there's my loop with the cool Black Bear Custom Kydex logo. Then you can see I've got the Junglas and then the RB3 on the front. And then down here on the bottom, what Micah did was he attached a pouch that's really built for like an SE6, but he attached it to this system. And in here, I've got an Altoids tin, an ESEE Altoids tin with a little kit inside. So I've got a whole system here, really nicely put together, small knife, big chopping tool, and some items in there. And obviously you could put like a fishing kit in there, you could put fire starting gear, whatever you want. That's what the back looks like. It is in kind of an OD green, and then the brown, and then obviously this is kind of a light green as well. So this is my current sheath system for my ESEE Junglas. This is going to cost you more than obviously just getting the standard one, but I like the Junglas so much that I invested in getting a nice sheath. This is the sheath system for the El Chete Kydex. It is open on the top, which is pretty standard for any kind of machete style tools. It does have the pull the dot system for the snap there, so you can't just pull it this way. You have to actually pull it in the right direction, which means popping this one up and then it comes off. You can see there's a little lip inside right there. So it only properly locks when you put it on basically from the top and then push it down. On the back you do have a loop here, so you can set up the dangler system. You could just, loop some paracord around this to put it in put it on the outside of a pack if you wanted as well. Nice big metal D-ring. And I mean, when you get Kydex from Tops, it's nicely done. I've never gotten a sheath from them that I'm like, oh, this is really poorly put together. It doesn't have all kinds of attachments and other options like my Black Bear Custom Kydex does, but nonetheless, a nice sheath system that comes with the El Chete. Here's your sheath for the Nomad field knife. Nice Kydex, nicely molded. I will say that because of the heft of the knife, I would recommend putting some sort of like bungee here and then maybe setting it up so it could loop over the handle. This will come out if you really shake on it. I don't want to actually have the knife fall on the ground, but I'll show you as I go like this. I can get the Kydex off. Ready? So you just want to be careful. Find a way to lock that in so that you don't actually lose the knife. Now that said, the Kydex is real Kydex. It's not plastic or anything. Nicely molded. They do give you some of these max force attachment kind of strap systems on the back, so you can attach it to a pack. You can run that on your belt if you want to. Overall, it's nicely made, but I would like to see it lock in a little bit more snugly than it is right now. Here's your system for the Work Tough Gear C.U.M.A King Destructo. Now, this one, in the same way, if I go like this, I can definitely fling the Kydex off. So they've included a bungee that goes to the bottom of the sheath, and then it goes up over the handle and basically rests like that so that the blade or the knife can't come out. If you pulled against it, you could probably eventually get it to snap, but I mean, that would take a lot of force. So that keeps it a little bit safer as you're actually using it. The Kydex is nice. Some of those mag force kind of clips on the back, again, if you want to attach it to a pack. You could run it a couple different ways. This is the way that it lines up most easily with the holes I found in the mag force clips, and that's how I'm going to run it anyhow. So overall, I'll say if you're going to get custom Kydex done, Black Bear Custom Kydex does awesome work, but all the sheaths that come with these 4 chopping tools are very functional and actually quite good, I would say, for coming stock with your item, with your tool, with your knife. All right, let's start wrapping up the video. First thing I want to tell you is that I've had a chance to use these items both on screen and off screen. Like I mentioned before, the Junglas and the El Chete I've had for a while. The Work Tough Gear tools I've had more recently, but I just didn't want this video to go on for an hour and a half. So I've had a chance to use them on screen and off screen as well. So I want to talk about these tools from kind of the most knifey of the 4 of them to, on the other end, something that's much more of like a chopping tool. So the one that's the most knifey to me, if I can use that word, is the Work Tough Gear Nomad field knife. Let me talk about the steel real quick. So it's Bowler K340. In my research, it's like a D2 that's been upgraded to another level. So good corrosion resistance, and also it's even at a high Rockwell hardness, it's got a high level of durability. So from having used it, I can tell you that that seems to be the case. This one, as soon as you pick it up, you feel it in your hand. You're like, that feels like a large knife. It doesn't feel like, a compact little Mora or something like that, but it definitely feels like a knife. The weight of it and the overall feel and function, I hold this and I'm like, yeah, that's a knife more than a chopping tool. Now, it's a knife that can definitely chop effectively. I would equate this to something like the Tops Tom Brown tracker as far as how it functions as a chopper. This thing feels even lighter to me, and it's got a bigger belly, I think, than the Tops Tom Brown tracker does. Overall, this thing was fun to use. I would definitely say if you're a person who wants something that's lighter weight but can chop, but mostly does kind of like knife tasks with a larger knife, this is one to definitely check out. The steel has been great for me so far. I think it's going to hold up. We'll see about sharpening it in the future as far as having to put an edge back on it, but right now I haven't had to. So yeah, I really like the blue liners as well, just to show you those. Like I mentioned before, the sheath, I'd like to see that get a little bit more secure, but I think you just buy some paracord or a bungee and put it up over kind of where the blade goes in, and that'll keep it a little bit more secure. But this thing is really good. Your price point for this is $240, so it's not cheap, But this is the type of knife that if you're like, I want to go with a larger knife and then like a tiny little compact knife, this could be your larger knife. I really enjoyed using this thing, and I'll be putting this thing through the paces definitely more in the future. What stood out to me the most from this knife was the handle. Just supremely comfortable. Now I like a neutral handle, which this is, but because of that G10 texturing, it does feel like I have some really nice grip on it. With the finger guard and then this little kind of hook down toward the end, you're getting really good control on the knife. Again, an overly textured or overly contoured knife handle for me, especially with something I want to use in a variety of ways, not super helpful, but this thing doesn't do that. It just pretty close to neutral with some extra texture to give you extra grip. So definitely a win, the Nomad field knife from Work Tuff Gear. Next up we have the ESEE Junglas. This one is not as what I would call knifey as the Nomad field knife, just because it is quite a bit longer. But this thing just is an awesome blade. Again, I've said this before, but I can see why people like it so much. That neutral handle is absolutely a win for me. Not a lot of contours and weird cutouts and things like that. It just works really well for me. With the length of this thing, you can chop really well, you can baton effectively, but also because, like I said, the handle is comfortable, you can really get in and do some of those finer detail cuts if you need to do that. Now again, this thing is not the same thing as using an RB3 or maybe the PR4 from ESEE, but definitely a win. This one's going to run you from about $139 to over $200 depending on what version of the Junglas you get. There's also a smaller version of this, the Junglas 2, which is just a little bit shorter. If you want something similar but you just want a smaller profile or a shorter profile. Yeah, this thing is a win. I like it so much. As you saw, I had a custom sheath made for it from Black Bear Custom Kydex, and I'll put a link to his website down in the description section of this video. But this one is a little less knifey than the Nomad field knife, but again, a great chopper. The one downside to this one compared to like the El Chete, for example, is that it doesn't have the weight. But I do think overall it still does a great job at a lot of different tasks. The other thing about the Junglas is the steel, which is $10.95. It's going to hold an edge well, and yet it's easy to sharpen out in the field. So yeah, this thing is definitely a winner. All right, next up we have the Work Tuff Gear C.U.M.A King Destructo, and this thing was really fun to use, honestly. So the sheath I like because it's got that bungee that goes over where you draw the tool out or the knife out, so that's going to give it lock in. You've got a bunch of profiles there for your on your blade, so you can do more effective batoning back here, and then you can do a little bit more. It's a little more slicey up front, if you will. Nice tip there to pierce. Rather than being just straight across here, it does have this kind of swoop, so that is going to be that's going to reduce some weight. You also have this little pry section here, which I didn't show you on camera, but you can get in on something and then pry. You want to make sure you don't do it like this with the blade towards you, but you can pry with that as well. The handle's comfortable. I would like to see it a little bit thicker for me. I got large size hands, but it was still very comfortable. And the thing I really liked about it, I'm gonna show you close up here. You can put your hand up here if you want to do some of that more detail work. You can slide it back here if you want to do some more of that chopping work. And then with a lanyard on it, that's going to add in a whole nother level of control when you're chopping. But this thing is definitely right in that middle between like a chopping tool and a large knife, and it really chopped well. I was not surprised because it looks like it's going to, but it was very close to the effectiveness of the El Chete, and the El Chete's got more weight and just thickness in general. So this one's running $219 over at Work Tuff Gear. Both the Work Tuff Gear knives, the Nomad field knife and this, are new to me, but I've really liked using these. So bottom line, definitely a winner. Not as knifey as the Nomad field knife, and not just like that brute force of the El Chete I'll talk about in a minute, but a nice go-between and very cool looking knife too. I forgot to mention the steel on the C.U.M.A King Destructo. This is SK85, which is a steel that Work Tuff Gear is using on a lot of their products. My research says it's a tool steel. My experience says it's a good tool steel. I think the real thing that creates major problems for companies is when they don't heat treat their steel well, and Work Tuff Gear definitely does a nice job with their heat treat. So I've never had any issues with dings or rolls that weren't operator error. I've definitely put some dings in like the Red Wolf recently that I was testing out from these guys, but that's because I chopped into a log that there was a nail on the top of it, so that was my fault, not their fault. But the SK85, good solid steel in my experience. Last up here, the El Chete from TOPS. This thing is just a beast. This is the least knifey. So if you need something that you're going to be doing some slicing and carving and cutting and stuff like that, I just wouldn't go with this. But as far as processing wood and hacking through stuff, the weight, the thickness, this thing just, it does damage. It really, really chops through stuff. I go away with a couple buddies every year. They're like missionaries and pastors, and we all get together for a spiritual retreat. We do a lot of cooking over the fire, and every year now they're like, hey, make sure you bring the El Chete, because they know this thing processes wood like no other. Batoning, I mean, that quarter inch thickness plus the weight, it does a lot of work and does it effectively. So if you're looking for something that you're like, oh, I want a multi-use tool that can do some of the detail work, I don't think this is the one for you. But since I first saw it and since I've had it and used it over the years, this thing is definitely a winner. Not on the knife end, but definitely on the hacking through stuff and chopping through stuff. This thing has performed really well over the years. Your steel for this one is $10.95 again. That's easy to sharpen in the field, as I mentioned before, with the Junglas. Price point for this one is around $219 right at the time of this video. So kind of in the price range a lot of these other tools that we've been looking at. So now I want to hear your thoughts on these tools. So I'm calling them tools, you might call them knives, you might call them one tool options. Let's hear your thoughts on what you think about these knives. And if you have other ones that are like this that weren't featured in this video, then share about that. Maybe you've got something else that's like, that's your go-to when it comes to a chopping, batoning, slicing, all-around tool that you use out in the woods. Let's get that conversation started down in the comment section. All right, guys, thanks as always for checking out the videos here on YouTube. Please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram, Tumblr, and Vero as well. More videos coming soon. Take care.